What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Everything you need to know for week 5. I'll be going over some injury situations to keep an eye on, as well as the best and worst wide receiver cornerback matchups. But we will start things off like usual with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was through the first 4 weeks, which quarterback has the least time to throw on average, and the answer is Dak Prescott, which is not going to get better now that Tyron Smith is out for the season. And Michael K, you were the first one to get that one right. Today's stat, Calvin Ridley leads all wide receivers in deep targets on the season. What 2 wide receivers are tied for first and second? You don't need to get both, just, make 2 guesses, and I'll just shout out the 2 people who guess the names first. Okay, we're going to start off with not injury news, but yet again, some game movement. So assuming that there are no more positive tests after this is recorded, I know that on Friday there's none in this game, but you never know, some things could happen on Saturday or Sunday. But the Bills and Titans will be playing as of right now on Tuesday night. It is still a little bit risky to play these players. Like, you should just understand that, because we could see everything be fine on Saturday, on Sunday, but then all of a sudden on Monday or on Tuesday, they get a positive test, and then you're forced to just have a 0. I mean, if you play a Bills or a Titans player, and then on Tuesday, they go, oh, here comes another positive test, this game is now postponed to later in the season, you take a 0, which is obviously just going to crater your lineup. But if everything goes well on Saturday and Sunday, I think we're playing these guys. I have Josh Allen in one league, and while I would rather just play Cam Newton, who I also have, he's on my IR, and so of course I can't play him. I do think we take the risk, mostly also because there's not like a ton of players in this game. I mean, you've got Stefon Diggs, you've got maybe Singletary, we're going to go over him, we're actually going to go over Diggs as well in this video. You've got Derrick Henry, maybe you're starting AJ Brown, maybe Jonnu Smith, but there's not like a ton of players. And so let's say you're someone who has AJ Brown. Well, you know what? You probably also have other wide receivers that you're comfortable starting. And so with him, why take the risk? Right? I mean, really, like, there's going to be players you have that are very close to his production. Why take the risk? Jonnu Smith, do you have a fill-in that you've been playing up until this point? Maybe you play him because it's also a brutal matchup for him as well. Tannehill, you probably have a streaming option you can play over him. So unless we're talking about guys basically like Diggs and Derrick Henry, you probably have someone, and I guess Josh Allen for me as well, you probably have someone. And so if you do have someone and it's remotely close, honestly, I would lean towards just playing that person and being safe. But like I said, we're going to go over these players a little bit more later in the video. They also moved the Broncos at Patriots game to an early Monday night game. So it's going to be a 5 o'clock Eastern kickoff, which I believe is like 2 hours earlier than the last time they moved the game. I think they moved it to 7 o'clock in that one. So we're going to have 2 Monday night games again, which is kind of cool. I feel much better about this game happening because, of course, the Patriots really only had Gilmore and Newton as the 2 players that test positive, whereas, Titans have had like a million players. But pay attention. I mean, we're all just guessing. Literally anything could happen. It could be a whole separate outbreak, so just pay attention. See if this game's happening. I guess you've got a little bit more of an opportunity in this one if your player's out, because then there's the game after that, then there's the game potentially on Tuesday, and so you have a little bit of a chance to find a fill-in. But on to injuries. Those are the 2 situations. Oh, and also the Jets, as of recording this, they're rerunning a test on a Jets player that tested positive. Let's see. Let's just see what happens with that one. But of course, if that game doesn't play, you're going to have to find replacements, but that one plays on Sunday, so we're going to know before these 2 games. Now on to the injuries. So Cam Akers practiced in full. He should be good to go this week. He was semi-close last week, but I think he's going to play this week. Remember what I said in the running back video, though? They are adding a 3rd running back to a backfield that last week was already messy. We really thought Henderson had taken over, and then they went back to not featuring, but using Brown a little bit more and using him more on passing downs, which was a little bit confusing. This is not a good situation for anyone in this backfield. So like I said in the video, until someone just takes over and is getting like 60-65% of the snaps or the touches or just something, just someone takes over, I don't trust any of them outside of like 14-team leagues and more. And so I wouldn't be starting them. Michael Thomas got a limited practice in on Thursday. We'll see how much he practices today as I'm watching this, but yesterday for you guys, he seems much, much more likely to play this week than he was looking like he was going to play last week. But they play on Monday night, so it's another situation. Hopefully you have Sanders or Traquan Smith so that if he is out, you can play them. But I do think he's going to play, but I also think we're going to know. I really think this is a situation where we're going to find out on Friday or Saturday if he's in or out, so just make sure you keep up to date on that. Lamar Jackson missed practice on Wednesday with a knee injury, and then Thursday with like illness/knee injury. It was probably still mostly the knee. It has been reported that he's going to play on Sunday, but it's worth noting that the betting lines have been removed in this one. So, bettors are even a little bit skeptical as to what's going to happen. Just keep an eye on it. They play, I believe, at 1 o'clock, but they definitely play on Sunday, and so you're going to know. I still am pretty sure that he's going to play. They're probably just seeing he has like a little bit of trouble with the knee, giving him some time off, but obviously, keep an eye on this one because that one's huge. Julio did not practice Thursday. I do not think he's going to be playing this week. That's been the sense all week. Remember, in the Monday night game, the second Monday night game, he had the hamstring injury. And he tried to play through it, but then we see at halftime, he just doesn't come out of the locker room. And so he definitely aggravated the injury. Hamstrings are not something you want to play around with. He probably shouldn't have played in the Monday night game. He probably should have just done what Adams did. Thought he was going to play, but then he's like, you know what? I'm just going to hold out. Then I have my bye week. So we should be expecting Davante Adams back next week, basically fully healthy. Whereas Julio, he risked it. He suffered the setback, and it doesn't look like he's going to play this week. He might be out for even longer than that. So just even if for some reason he comes out there and he's like, you know what? I'm going to try and play this week again too. I don't trust him. There's just no way, even if he plays, you're playing Julio. Calvin Ridley was limited in practice this week. He is also banged up with like a number of injuries. It seems more likely that he's going to play. I believe he played like the majority of the game. He was like in and out of the lineup last week with, again, just like a number of ailments. But he had 0 receptions, so I understand if you're a little hesitant to play him. But realistically, he had 0 points in week 4, and he's still the wide receiver 1 overall. So we took a 0 in 25% of the games, still wide receiver 1 overall. I think since we're expecting Julio to not play, if Ridley's out there, I think you still just have to be playing him unless we get word of some sort of snap count. But you know what? He almost caught a long touchdown in the game. He was still out there running routes, and he is limited in practice. So if he's out there, I am playing him. Joe Mixon was added to the injury report with a shin injury. I don't know. I'm not too concerned about a shin. If it was a groin, a hamstring, just some sort of soft tissue, I would be a little bit concerned with a late week injury ad. But honestly, just watch this. I think that we need to just assume that he plays, and you're probably playing him if you have him. Jimmy G has returned to practice this week, talking about Garoppolo, not Graham, because Graham already played on the Thursday game. As of recording this, he's not a lock to return, but it's obviously a good sign for him playing this week if he's getting in these limited practices. It's unlikely that you're starting him. You probably have someone better you can start, but his return would be a big boost for skill players in this team, except maybe Kittle, because it doesn't even matter who they throw in at quarterback for Kittle. He's a lock and load play. He's just a monster. But it'll help all the other skill players if they have a better quarterback. And it's a good matchup, so you want him to be playing if you have their skill players. Raheem Mostert did return to practice. This one is pretty big, honestly. If he remains out, then McKinnon is just a lock and load play. You're just playing McKinnon. Great matchup. He was in 92% of the snaps last week. You got to be playing him. But if Mostert returns, it's a more difficult decision. They would likely split the snaps with McKinnon getting most, if not all, of the passing down snaps. And I would personally find it a little bit difficult to trust Mostert in his first week back. I only have him in one league, and we're starting Gibson and Mike Davis ahead of him as of right now. So if he does return, I would still probably keep him on the bench. And then McKinnon, well, it would depend really what else you have. I'll adjust the rankings if it looks like Mostert is definitely in. But my guess is that he would end up, talking about McKinnon here, in that like 20 to 25 kind of range. So not a bad play, something you can definitely start, but that doesn't mean you have to start him. Like a running back, let's just guess 23. That doesn't mean everyone's starting him. It depends on what you have. So I'd say like a low end 2 if Mostert is back. Zack Moss has remained limited in practice this week with that same toe injury that held him out last week. I went over this in the running back video, but I'll do it again in case you guys missed it. If Moss is out, you're starting Singletary. If Moss is active, then I wouldn't trust Moss in his first game back because we just have no clue how much they're going to use him. And then Singletary would be much more of a flex play, but it's kind of a similar situation to McKinnon. It's like he'll be a good play, but it doesn't mean you have to play him because it'll depend on what you have. Right now, he's my running back 21. That might go down a few spots if Moss is active, but it won't be many. I don't think he would fall past like the running back 25, 26. So again, depends on what you have. Dwayne Haskins will not be the starting quarterback of the football team this weekend. Kyle Allen's taken over the starting role, at least for this week. And then Alex Smith is actually going to be the backup. It's awesome to see him active for the first time since suffering that horrible injury. And I really do hope that at some point this season, he gets a chance to play. It probably won't happen this week unless Allen is just dreadful or gets hurt. But sometime in the next month, maybe we see Alex Smith return as the starter. And that kind of means in a super flex league, in a really deep league, you could add him. I mean, in super flex leagues, you don't usually get players starting for a team that's on free agency. So if he is on free agency, I would add him in a super flex league. Going back to Kyle Allen, though, this is really just a lateral move for Washington. Both Allen and Haskins are not good quarterbacks. There's a chance, like we talked about in the running back video, maybe Allen throws a few more dump-offs to Gibson because we did see last season he loved to throw dump-offs, but we're really just guessing who he's going to favor. I mean, obviously we know that Terry McLaurin's just going to be the guy in the passing game, but we don't know for sure what his split's going to be among different positions, and so maybe Thomas is a little bit better than he has been. Maybe, like I said, Gibson might get a few more dump-offs. We'll just have to see. But again, it's more of a lateral move. He's not a very good quarterback. For those, unfortunately, in leagues with kickers, Younghoe Koo has returned to practice. It looks like he's going to retake the starting job for Atlanta. And so if he was dropped in your league, I would add him because, high-scoring offense. You want the kickers in those leagues. Last bit of news we'll go over is Phillip Lindsay. He will likely return. I haven't seen that confirmed yet, but he's been practicing. It seems like he's going to return this week. That really hurts the value of Melvin Gordon. So hopefully you sold high on him after his monster week 4. I would not trust Lindsay in his first week back from injury. That is just something you got to realize I'm always going to say. Whenever someone's coming back from an injury and they're not just like the lock and load starter, I'm going to be hesitant. I don't know how much they're going to play him. And so I don't want to start people right when they return. Unless you have to. If you're in, 14, 16 team league, you've been hanging on to Lindsay, you have to play him, well, okay, you can play him. But in a normal 10, 12, even most 14 team leagues, you do not have to play Lindsay this week. Just see how much they use him. But for Gordon, like I said, it really hurts his value, especially in a really difficult road matchup with the Patriots. So I think Gordon is fine to play in the flex if you need to. But I would prefer, if you had maybe a better wide receiver to play in the flex over him. I'm sure more news will come out on Friday, on Saturday, early Sunday. Just make sure you're following both myself and Adam Schefter on Twitter just to get the latest updates, and I'm sure you'll be fine with the news that comes out. Okay, let's go over some good and bad wide receiver cornerback matchups to end this video. We will start off with the good this week, and first up, we have Stefon Diggs. Diggs has been really good this season, but he's only had one top 15 finish so far. Luckily, it was in the week that we featured him as a must start in this video, which we will be doing again this week. Of course, this is obviously assuming that this game actually plays. And if we find out that it's not playing, then just skip this section of the video. There's the timestamps. I'm sure most of you know at this point. At the bottom of the video, it says exactly when I'll be going over each player, each section. So just follow along with that. But why is Diggs a must start this week if the game plays? First off, he's going to see a ton of Jonathan Joseph. Joseph's allowing 1.8 yards per route covered, which is one of the highest marks in the league. He's also allowed 12 yards per target, a very high mark. But the biggest reason is that Diggs is going to see a lot of man coverage. And you don't play man coverage against Stefon Diggs, especially when you don't have just a shutdown corner. Like if you've got, Jalen Ramsey, sure, put him in man coverage on Stefon Diggs. But basically anyone else, don't play man against Diggs. He's going to absolutely shred you. So I expect Diggs to get open a ton this week. He already ranks 8th in targets, 14th in air yards, and honestly, I consider him a must play yet again. I don't care what other wide receivers you have. You're playing Stefon Diggs this week. Another must play is Will Fuller, 7th best matchup according to PFF this week. Trey Herndon is the Jaguars' best corner, but he is not expected to shadow Fuller. DJ Hayden was placed on IR. CJ Henderson is out with a shoulder injury, so they can't really afford to take their best corner and have him shadow Fuller all game. Like, they need him to play in other spots. And so, given that Herndon also doesn't usually shadow anyways, like, why would they start doing that this week? Also, Herndon plays the majority of his snaps on the right, whereas Fuller only runs 29% of his routes on that side. So Fuller is going to see a lot of Chris Claybrooks, which is a great matchup for him because he's allowed an 83% completion percentage and 0.4 fantasy points per route covered. Both of those rank in the bottom 13 among all corners this week. This is also a Jaguars defense that as a whole ranks 32nd in pass defense DVOA, 24th in yards per attempt. Like, Fuller may have had that week 2 dud, but that was against the Ravens, and he was clearly limited in that game. But his other 3 games, 8 for 112, 4 for 54 and a touchdown, 6 for 108 and a touchdown, which was actually, potentially a huge game last week, but they overturned that touchdown that he bobbled right at the back of the end zone. It was very, very close to a monster performance by Fuller last week. And so given that this is a game that the Texans can win, the Texans can score a bunch of points in, and I expect them to come out firing in the first game of the post-Bill O'Brien era, like, I would be starting Fuller in every single league you got him in. The final must start is Robby Anderson, which is not something I thought I would say this season, but honestly, he's been great, and he's got the perfect matchup this week. The Falcons have allowed the 10th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, while ranking 31st in pass defense DVOA, 31st in yards per attempt, 30th in opponent points per drive, 30th in red zone touchdown defense, and has allowed the most passing plays of 20 or more yards. Anderson already ranks 9th in targets, 7th in receiving yards, so getting this matchup should allow him to sustain those numbers or improve on them. If you have Anderson, you're starting him this week. I also think you're starting DJ Moore. I just felt like highlighting Anderson because you were pretty sure you were starting Moore anyways, but Anderson, a lot of people are probably like a little bit more hesitant about starting. I think he is an awesome play in the flex. You can even play him as a wide receiver 2 this week. I think he's going off. On the bad side, though, we do have a few people to avoid. We'll start off with T.Y. Hilton. Hilton has not been good this season. He's been out-targeted by Pascal 16-13 over their last 3 weeks, and his best game on the season is 4 receptions for 53 yards. The Colts have thrown the 5th fewest pass attempts per game, and that's resulted in just 2 total games over 60 receiving yards for any player on this offense. 1 by Campbell, 1 by Moali. This is a run-first team that's really only going to throw it when they need to, and this is going to be a very slow-paced game. It's got one of the lowest totals on the week, so there's fewer plays, fewer scoring chances. I don't see how you could be comfortable starting Hilton this week, so I personally would keep him on the bench if you got him. I would also, unfortunately, bench Diontae Johnson. I love him this season. I really think he's a good trade target. But for this week, he will be shadowed by Darius Slay. Slay has allowed a combined 22.5 fantasy points to opposing wide receivers on the entire season. And that's not because he's faced, a bunch of scrubs. He held McLaurin to 5 for 61, Woods to 2 for 14. If Diontae was like the only good Steelers receiver, well, then I'd say, okay, you're playing him because they're just going to pepper him with targets. But they have other players, and Big Ben's not dumb. Like, he knows that if Deontay's kind of taken out of the game, he has talent everywhere in this offense. He's not going to force the ball to Diontae if he's covered. So I have him ranked in that, like, wide receiver 30 kind of range, and I would really try to find someone else if you have an option this week. So those are the injury situations you need to keep an eye on, as well as some good and bad wide receiver cornerback matchups. If you want all of your start-sit questions answered, then you can see my exact rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That's the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? But thanks for watching.